love stories can be inspiring and emotional, but they can also end in tragedy. An example of this is the famous story of Inês de Castro, the only posthumous queen of Portugal. Born in Galicia between 1320 and 1325, Inês was the illegitimate daughter of Galician nobleman Pedro Fernandes de Castro and Portuguese noblewoman Alonso Soares de Valadares. She was descended from noble Portuguese and Galician lineages and was an illegitimate member of the royal house of Castile in Spain. Inês arrived in Portugal in 1340 as a lady-in-waiting to Queen Constança Manuel de Vilhena, the bride of Pedro I of Portugal. At just 15 years old, the beautiful young Inês caught Pedro's attention and he fell madly in love with her. But Pedro was still married to Queen Constança. Pedro and Constança had married for political interests and not for love. The prince neglected his legitimate wife and compromised the delicate relations with the Castilian crown. The solution was to maintain a secret affair with Inês, which eventually became public after Constança's death in 1349. King Afonso IV of Portugal was alarmed by his heir Pedro's libertine behavior. He had friendly relations with Inês' brothers, who were Castilian. Afonso feared for the independence of the country after his death and warned his son several times to end the affair with Inês, but without success. Inês' brothers began to conspire to convince Pedro to consider himself a legitimate claimant to the throne of Castile and Leon. This would allow their nephew, the future child of Pedro and Inês, to rule a powerful unified Iberian kingdom, ending Portuguese independence. After the death of Queen Constança, Pedro and Inês openly lived together. The couple had 4 children: Afonso, Beatriz, João, and Dinis. Pedro's legitimate son with Constança, Fernando I of Portugal, was a frail child. On the other hand, Pedro and Inês' illegitimate children were thriving, creating even more instability among the Portuguese nobility. In 1355, Afonso decided that Inês' presence was a political risk to the Portuguese royal lineage and decided to execute her. Pedro was away on a hunting trip and 3 assassins were sent to the monastery of Santa Clara in Coimbra, where Inês was being held. Inês pleaded with the king for her life and the lives of her children, but she was beheaded in front of the infants. She was buried in the city of Coimbra. When Pedro learned of this, he swore revenge and led a revolt against his father. When Pedro assumed the throne after Afonso's death in 1357, he went after Inês' killers and managed to capture 2 of them in 1361. Pedro personally executed them in a public event, tearing out the assassins' hearts in the most painful way possible. The 3rd assassin escaped. Pedro declared that he and Inês had secretly married, making her his legitimate wife and queen. He had grand marble tombs built for both of them at the monastery of Alcobaça. Several years after Inês' death, Pedro had her body exhumed and brought to the monastery of Alcobaça. Pedro forced the entire royal court to pay homage to the new queen. She was placed on the throne adorned with a diadem and royal garments. The king demanded that all the nobility of the kingdom pay tribute to the deceased queen. Pedro died a few years later. He was buried next to his beloved Inês, with their bodies facing each other. The tragic tale of Inês de Castro,